And I'll tell you, Louie, for some reason, it feels easier if I just say, I'm going to fight it. You mentioned, this kind of idea that we were both brought up in, like having your quiet time and doing all these things. And we see that maybe that was a little bit legalistic and hard, but the truth is, like, we want to have encounters with Jesus every single day. Like that's our life, where it's a constant thing that we're moving towards. And you recently released a devotional to go along with the book that we talked about last year, which was called "Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table." You released a devotional called "At the Table with Jesus." And I will say I was a little taken back when I saw it, because it says it's 66 days to draw closer. And I was like, I've never seen anyone use anything that's 66 days. Like, Louis, 60, 70, 75, I don't know, 59 even. Can you expand on that just for a
Yeah,
second?
and the 66, all you need is one more 6 on
I
there, and then
know.
we've got
I
real
got a little
problems.
nervous.
Yeah. Well, I am the same. And I just learned after releasing Don't Give the Enemy a Seat, I was doing an interview with a neuroscientist. And she said that it takes 60 some odd days to create a new habit. And I was like, no, it takes a month to create a new habit. 30 days, everyone knows that. She said, no, that's just, an old wives' tale. The average time it takes a human being to form a new habit is 66 days. And for all the overachievers that are listening today, you can create a new habit in 18 days, apparently. And to those who need a little extra help and encouragement, sometimes it takes as long as 240 days to create a new habit. But the average for a human being, 66 days. And so that's why we went with that number. And these are 11 sections of 6 days worth of devotions, just looking at different aspects of Jesus. It is a devotional, Jamie, but it's kind of a Christology, to use a more theological word, where we're just diving into the facets of who Jesus is. And we're in a section we just started now. Jesus is, I started last Wednesday, so that's where I am in the second section. Jesus, fully God and fully man. And we're looking at that dynamic every day for 6 days now. So we talked about who we don't want at the table, but you don't win the battle of your mind by fighting the lies of the enemy. You win the battle of your mind by absorbing and embracing the truth of God. And so if this is who we don't want at the table, then who do we want at the table? And so we're inviting people to sit down with the King, to have a quiet time, if you will.
There it is.
In the presence of their enemies with Jesus for 66 days.
It's interesting that you said, we don't win the battle by fighting the enemy, but by, meditating on God and knowing him more. I think there is this misconception that I need to fight more. And I've even thought that of myself. I need to fight this. Like, this is coming up again. I got to fight this again. But even the idea of, like, what if I switch my mentality from, I need to fight this anxiety that keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. Fight it, Jamie. Fight it, Jamie. But to switch that mentality, instead of like, fight it, to like, enjoy God, know him and meet with him. And I'll tell you, Louie, for some reason, it feels easier if I just say, I'm going to fight it. I don't know if that means I want control, and I think I'm in control if I have the sword in my hand. I don't know, but that does feel harder for me to say, I'm going to invest more in Jesus in my brain than I am fighting that. And why am I feeling that way? I literally just hired you for a 30-minute counseling session just for a second, Louie. I don't know if you noticed.
Well, one of the things, just to go back one step, when I was talking to this neuroscientist about this, she explained it to me in neurological terms. And she said that if you think a thought, any thought, positive, negative, for 66 days consistently, morning, noon, and night, you're dwelling on this thought, you create a neural pathway in your brain. So you literally create a transportation avenue for that thought to travel on. And the more you walk on that path, it's like you guys have owned property. You're walking down there through the pasture or whatever, and you eventually wear a little path. And if you sort of drive it in your car, you got a 2-lane road. And if you want to get real committed, you put some gravel down. And if you're really going to go for it, you maybe pave it. That's what you're doing every time you think that thought consistently over time. You're wearing a pathway in your mind, literally, not figuratively. You're literally making a pathway in your brain. And so when God said, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, He was so far ahead of all the neuroscientists because he knew what we were doing
Yeah.
when we were thinking those thoughts. And so what God is saying is, if you don't win the path, I mean, win your mind by looking at the path that you've made and say, boy, I don't like that path, man, I'm
Right.
not going to go down that path, I'm not going to go down that road anymore. You don't win the battle of your mind that way. You win the battle of the mind by making a new road in your mind,
Mm,
and you make a new road by thinking what is true. So I used to say it a different way before I understood this. Like I knew a guy that all of my life we were growing up, and he was like, I'll never be an alcoholic like my father. I'll
mm,
never be an alcoholic like my father. I will never be like my father. I will never be like my father. And I just finally one day it dawned on me and I said, do you realize how many times you say never every day?
mm,
That is a negative expression. And what do you want to be?
mm,
Well, I want to not leave my family. Okay.
mm.
Not is a negative word. I want to, and it took a minute to figure
Yeah.
out how do I say this positively and
Mm,
create a verbal and a mental picture of what I do want to become. Or in the case of our relationship with God, what I already am in Christ. So
mm,
maybe somebody's listening today and they have a 8-lane freeway in their mind that says they don't matter to God,
mm,
or they don't matter, period. And they've driven semi trucks of thoughts down that freeway for many, many, many years. They're not going to win, Jamie, in life by saying, boy, I wish I could get to the point where I didn't think I didn't matter to God. They're going to get to that point by embracing what God is offering them and saying, wow, there's a cross in my story. I matter to God. I'm
mm,
going to, I'm going to, I'm going to see if this works. And for 66 days, consistently morning, noon, and night, I'm going to agree with God and I'm going to say over my own life, I matter to God. How?
mm,
Circumstances? No, there's a cross in my story. It shows me that I matter to God. Do I feel it? No, but you don't build neural highways by feelings. You build them by thinking. You don't win your
mm,
battle of your life by feeling. You win it by thinking, thinking rightly. So I'm going to just start believing and speaking over my life. I matter to God. I matter to God. And when I'm doing that, I'm creating a pathway, and it doesn't change in 66 seconds. It won't change in 6 days. It won't change by raising your hand at the end of a message in church. But after 66 days, the science says that you actually make a path. And while you're busy
mm,
making that path, grass is starting to grow over this little
mm,
trail over here. And I really believe God didn't say renew your mind if he didn't know that we really actually could do that.